Tonight we're going to talk about the implementation of the 2010 City of Los Angeles Bike Plan. And tonight we will learn more about the bike plan and discuss some of the current issues of congestion at peak times that many of you have experienced. The first thing you all need to understand is that the City of Los Angeles Bike Plan began in 2008, was completed in 2010, and approved by the City Council in 2011, almost a year before I assumed the responsibilities of a City Council member. When the bike lanes were first added, like you, I saw some of the congestion issues. My staff went to Westmont and Capitol to investigate the congestion problem that they and immediately briefed me. They drove the street at morning drop-off times and afternoon pickup times and timed it for me. The news I got from my staff was that Westmont usually takes about 2 minutes and 15 seconds to drive without traffic from Western to Gaffey. And with the new lanes, it was now taking between 4 minutes and 7 minutes during peak times. Following that report from my staff, I wanted to personally experience the drive. So I did and wanted to video the drive, as you all know, thinking that I can take you all with me and share the experience. I assumed you know which video I'm talking about. On that particular day and particular time I drove Westmont, I saw 25 cars lined up. And at the same time, it took me 3 minutes, 30 seconds to drive from Gaffey to Western. So absolutely, there is a slowdown during those times, especially between 7:45 and 8:05 a.m. and again from 2:45 to 3 o'clock p.m. As you walked in today, you were handed a questionnaire. This tool will help me understand the complete sentiment in this room and identify the exact problem area at the exact time. I am here tonight because I not only represent all of you, but consider you all my neighbors. And I want to do my part, what I can to make your lives easier and more comfortable. Like in a family tonight, we gather because we have a problem here. We will all work together to solve it. Before we begin, I want to let everyone know that I don't have a magic wand that I can wave and solve the issue immediately. I'll definitely do all I can for the greater good. I will listen with you and to all of you, and we will arrive at some action points to move forward. I've asked almost everyone involved in the planning and installing of the bike lanes to come before you and answer your questions. I hope we can all do this in a respectful way. I hope that we can keep this conversation civil and professional and focus our energy towards making our streets safe for everyone while spending less time caught up in congestion.
Work on the new bicycle plan with a council motion by Councilmember Reyes in about 2005. So we actually spent about 6 years working on the plan before it was finally adopted by council in 2011. Throughout those 5 years, we spent, well, I personally probably been in over 100 public meetings on the bicycle plan. We had quite a bit of outreach. It's never perfect, it's never enough, and it's always questionable when the stuff goes on the ground. People wonder where this came from, but a lot of the folks that showed up are the folks that are mostly interested in bicycling. But it's adopted by council unanimously, and it consists of about 1,680 miles of bike lanes and 183 policies designed to make the city more bicycle friendly. And it's essentially to be implemented and completed in total by over a 30-year period. So we're not going to do everything all at once. We're working through it little by little. The document consists of 1,680 miles, essentially of about 800 miles of bike lanes and 800 miles of something we're calling bicycle-friendly streets. These are essentially neighborhood streets that already are pretty good streets for bicycles to ride on. But they are opportunities to do traffic calming in those neighborhoods and give those neighborhoods back their streets.
The one thing I guess to keep in mind that I'd like to just make a point about is, obviously we know about these impacts during these school drop-off periods, but as a department, although my section is bikeways, the department is looking at how do we make our streets safer. And we've been designing our streets for many years with really just one thing in mind mostly. Although safety's always been important, we've been trying to move as many cars as possible. So I just encourage you to kind of take a step back and re-examine what are the benefits to slowing down cars during the greater part of the day. In some cases, there's a sacrifice during certain parts of the day. Is it worth it? It's a question I would say to ask yourself in these cases.
Before we turn it over to the audience, I have a series of questions that I want answered. First and foremost, why is the city installing so many bike lanes?
Essentially to give Angelenos a different way to travel, and to make the city more bike friendly, to slow traffic down. And as Tim mentioned, safety is a huge, huge deal. Bike lanes make the roadway safer for all users. They make automobiles slow down.
No. Come on, let's be respectful, guys. Let's be respectful.
I understand your issues with that, but the research and the Federal Highway Administration recognizes that this is fact, and it is a factual statement. The question is whether or not you want to go faster or you want to slow down, but they do make the roadways safer. So the California Complete Streets Act says that anytime we redesign the roadway or anytime the city touches the general plan or revises the mobility element of the general plan, we have to make streets safer and accommodate all users. So that's what we're doing. The low-hanging fruit, that easy stuff where we could just squeeze the travel lanes down and accommodate everybody, at the same time, we're out of that sort of opportunity. So we're at the point that something has to go, and that what can go is either the on-street parking, which we rarely touch, or we have to remove a travel lane. In these scenarios, I think we're looking at safety and the speed on the roadway, the volume of users that have been out there on a daily basis, and what we've been removing is one travel lane to put these in.
So why are we seeing all of these lanes being installed and we're finding the few cyclists on the street today and using any of these bike lanes already installed?
The reason people don't ride bicycles today is safety. They don't feel safe on the roadways.
Please, let's be respectful.
You don't have to like them. They may not apply to your neighborhood, but these are the facts. So, the reason people don't ride is for safety. They don't feel comfortable riding against high-speed traffic. So, the idea is to build a network of bikeways to accommodate them. We've seen this over and over in a number of European communities. It's happening in the US. New York, Chicago, San Francisco, San Jose are all doing what we're doing now to provide a network.
I'm not going to be naive with you guys. I know that we're not going to get a lot of bikes on either Westmont or Capitol. They're very steep. We know that. But we want to look at these streets differently. It's not just about bikes. It's really about making the streets safer. I would argue that there's a good point to be made about whether these streets should have ever been 2 lanes in each direction. These are neighborhood streets. It's not Gaffey. It's not, Western Avenue. Bike lanes are often a tool that we can use to slow down traffic. Outside of these hours, or these times that we know are issues with the school drop-off. I've driven it during the off hours as well, and it operates very well, I think. And it does require you to slow down a little bit if you're behind someone else who's going the speed limit.
Give us the numbers on Gaffey, on Western Avenue, and how they compare to the car count on Westmont and Capitol.
Westmont's 10,000 vehicles per day approximately. Gaffey Street, 35,000. It's just to give you a kind of a comparative metric. Western Avenue is between 40 and 50,000 vehicles, obviously much more heavily traveled. Capitol, I think, is roughly about the same as Westmont. Typically, we look at peak period traffic, which is that morning rush, PM rush. Westmont is kind of unique in that the rush is really during those school drop-off and pickup hours.
I think I just want to ask everybody one question really quick. Is anybody here truly against bike lanes?
No, just how they're done.
Okay, I think part of the problem we have is a perception problem. This community has always been pro-bike. There's early adopters here. Westmont, the Westmont Homeowners Associations that I belong to, we installed a bike route that included a separate bike path that comes off of the street and deviates, comes down, because we believe in the idea. This application, which is non-conforming to the state's code, correct?
No, that's not correct.
That's not correct.
Can you clarify what you mean by non-conforming?
This is not a conforming application according to the standard vehicle. There's not a standard application of the bicycle lane, given the application of your offset cushion device.
The offset cushion device still meets the vehicle code and the MUTCD. It's unusual perhaps and new, but it still meets all the requirements.
Now, is there, over the last couple of years, this community, that's the people who live in that area, have done a lot of things, and we've done a lot of things to positively affect your main concern, which is traffic flow, which is the speed of traffic. We've put up stop signs all over the place. It seems to me that if we can't slow down vehicles using stop signs and medians, we're certainly not going to do it by adding a bicycle lane.
These bike lanes, none of them are mandated. In other words, none of these, from what you told me, none of these bike lanes had to be there. Is that correct?
Is it yes or no?
The bicycle plan adopted by council unanimously calls for bike lanes on these corridors, yes.
So by law, those lanes had to be put in on Westmont, 25th, and Capitol.
So by adoption of the bicycle lane in the city's general plan, it calls for bicycle lanes on those to be implemented, yes.
Those specific streets, no
Yes.
matter what the disruption to the community.
The bicycle plan calls for bicycle lanes on those streets as adopted unanimously by city council.
I'm in favor of the bike lanes. I'm not against them. And the reason is because it has slowed people down. I've been there when the crossing guard has been hit by someone. I've been there watching kids trying to get across the street. I've been there for 39 years, so I've seen enough of it. Doing my math correctly, it sounds like it might take 2 more minutes to get from Western Avenue to Gaffey. So what? This is in the interest of safety. If we're going to place expedience over safety, not a good way to go, folks. Thank you.
I've heard it said that, San Pedro is not a good place for bicycle lanes because, our topography here is unusual. We have hills. I would say that I would have to agree with that, but as a moped rider, I do use the lane, and I very much appreciate the lane on Westmont because it's one of the few east-west streets in San Pedro that I can actually ride up on my moped. And I really appreciate the extra safety that comes from having these lanes in our town.
If we're going to have a traffic calming measure, I think that's what we should call it, and not call it a bike lane. We should call it a traffic calming measure.
I represent injured cyclists for a living. I ride my bicycle to court. And when I have clients come into my office, they have, spinal injuries, head injuries, brain injuries, I have yet to have somebody come into my office and say, I was driving my car and I just got run over and killed by a bicyclist. It's the other way around. It's the cars that need to slow down. It's the cars that need to make room for the bicycles. And it's the bicyclists that have a right to be on that road. Thank you for what you're doing. Please continue it. Much appreciated.
Just because you put these funky square boxes, what's wrong with a basic design of just a single line down there? Is it really that much of a threat that you have to cut away another complete lane? You've answered that, but it bothers me. And thirdly, since I like to ride my bike on errands, quite frankly, there's no place to lock your bike without blocking some stairwell or ramp or some handicap place. I actually would like to see more bicycle parking if you really want to encourage bicycle riders and have them use different streets.
Hi, my name is Anita Kelly. I'm the children's librarian here in San Pedro, and I ride my bike to work. I love it. I ride my bike for errands. I ride my bike up Westmont 3 times a week. I won't ride it up Capitol because that is too steep, but I can see you guys riding, I mean not everyone in here obviously, but I can see people riding their bike, and especially the kids, and I want to see the kids safe. I've ridden my bike to Taper. I've ridden my bike to South Shore, to Barton Hill. I ride all over this town, and it's a great bikeable town, even with the hills. Thank you.
My name is Margaret and I live on Westmont. I am not a bike rider, but I do love these lanes. For the mere fact, when I open up my car, I don't get hit. My neighbor next door, who's had a stroke, has almost been hit twice. With 2 lanes, people race up and down our street like we're a drag racing runway. We've lost more cars that were parked because people keep racing and losing control. Going down to 1 lane, it's quiet. My room's in the front. I don't hear anything anymore. It's nice. And I'm glad the bicyclists have their lanes, but I also like staying alive too.
This money would have been much better spent on the way that we actually do live our life here in LA. We're a community society. We need public transportation if that's what the goal is. You know, how do you ride your bike to work when you work in Santa Monica and live in San Pedro? We sit for hours in traffic.
I like the bike lanes. I ride them about 2 or 3 times a week to get to work. I feel safer. There's a lot of white trucks that park on Westmont. It used to be tight. Cars would cut very close to me. It's much more comfortable now.
By standing on the corner of Tabor and Westmont, the largest traffic impact is actually the traffic coming from Mary Star.
My name is John. I've lived in San Pedro all my life. I've ridden my bike here all of my life. I'm not usually a fan of bike lanes, but I really think that that bike lane on Westmont is a beautiful place. I think it's going to raise your property values. You guys should do it. It's slowing traffic down and it's helping out. We all need to slow down on the road, period. That's it. It might be inconvenient, but we have to deal with that, okay? We have to slow down. We have to respect every user of the road, not just people in cars.
Captain Nancy Lauer, Commanding Officer of LAPD Harbor area. Can you just give us your take on your experience in dealing with traffic calming measures, bike lanes, traffic concerns that had been generated before and after the bike lanes?
I'm very troubled by some of the traffic concerns that have been shared tonight as the commanding officer of Harbor area, and I know that Captain Johnson shares my concerns with regard to some of the issues that have been brought up. So, with regard to enforcement and where we can help you, enforcement means either A, it's going to be a warning, or B, it's going to be a ticket. And what we find oftentimes is that when community members identify a traffic problem, guess who ends up getting the tickets? All the community members that live in the neighborhood that are at this meeting tonight. So be sensitive to what you request, but know that we will support you and that we will start with warnings and then we will move to enforcement. So where there are areas where children are in danger or where there are U-turns that are jeopardizing your safety, left turns, right turns that are illegal, we absolutely will take action on those. So rather than ask you to share them all again, at the end, if you'd like to come forward, our senior lead is here. We'll take a list of those and we'll begin that enforcement process. We'll prioritize those based on your feedback and we'll take it from there. We do care about your concerns. We want your community to be safe and we will take action.
I think a lot of really great points have been made on both sides as far as safety issues. I have great concerns that removing the lanes is causing more of a problem than it's helping. However, I do believe that if we provide safe places for people to bike, whether it's a hobby or it's commuting, that we will get more people biking, and I do think that would be good for us. I know it would be good for me if I was on a bike. But it's just taking this section and trying to force it in, and it's just not feasible the way it's been done. And
I like, in a way, what's happening on 25th Street. The traffic coming into the business district where Albertsons is and all of the other shops needed to be slowed down. I wrote letters to the 2 previous councilmen trying to get a stop sign in at that's Moray, because traffic is just way too fast coming into that district. People are trying to get in onto 25th and make that left-hand turn to get onto Western so they can get to work, but they're just moving too fast. With that said, 25th Street, I like it, but maybe it needs to be adjusted a little bit. My business is on Pacific Avenue. The traffic on Pacific Avenue is tremendously fast, and there's accidents every other weekend, or every week we hear, and I would love to have a Cheryl or a lane on Pacific Avenue. Thank you.
For tonight, ladies and gentlemen, this is an extremely emotional issue. Just minutes of extra traffic can really impact people's lives. Now, the easiest way to avoid this traffic problem is to not drive down Westmont or Cap between 7:45 a.m. and 8:05, but that's just not possible. Those of us that have to drop off our kids at Tabor, Dodson, Cooper, Mary Star can't avoid Westmont during this time nor during the pickup time. So I want to do all I can to make those 20 minutes in the morning and in the afternoon more bearable. And here's what I propose as your council member. The intersection of Western and Westmont needs left turn signals. And I know Caltrans is here. We're going to be working with Caltrans. This intersection is under the state of California control, since Western, as we all know, is a state highway. I've spoken to Caltrans, Assembly Member Bonnie Lowenthal, and they've all agreed to install left turn signals at this intersection. This morning I introduced a motion in council that will begin the process of transferring funds from my discretionary account to Caltrans to front the money for the construction of these signals. I've also asked the City Department of Transportation traffic engineers to look at the possibility of extending the left turn pocket from Westmont to Western, and we also need to look at the possibility of 2 left turn lanes from Westmont to Western. My staff, along with Senior Lead Officer Arthur Ashcraft and Motor Officer Kyle Lee, met with Doreen Steinbach, who is here, principal of Taper Avenue. Thank you for being here. She's agreed to open the back gate of the campus to allow drop-off on Casey Avenue. This should relieve some of the traffic on Taper and Westmont. Thank you, Doreen, for doing that. I've also agreed to help find the money to pay for an aide to monitor the back gate in the morning.
Thank you for that.
Yes. Also, my staff has spoken to Mary Star of the Sea High School. They've agreed to look at changing their drop-off patterns beginning next September when school starts. They will also look at the possibility of entering and exiting off Western Avenue only. This could also help reduce the impact of traffic on Taper and Westmont. As far as 25th Street and Anchovy, you have already heard from Tim his commitment to look at that tri-light and change the pattern of it and the timing of it. We appreciate that. We'll also consider the possibility of changing the start times of Taper and Dotson. Currently, Dotson starts at 8:01 and Taper starts at 8:10. We will study if there are any positive effects for starting Dotson a few minutes earlier and or Taper to start a few minutes later. I do want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank our panelists, especially all those community members here before us. All I ask, ladies and gentlemen, 2 things. Patience and politeness. Please be patient as we get used to these new traffic markings and as we try to implement some of my proposed mitigations. Let's also be polite. Let's be polite to each other, motorists, cyclists alike, to those who have differing opinions, and mostly those on the road. Let's not endanger lives because of these inconveniences. We will work together, and with that, we thank you for letting your comments, your concerns be heard here, and thanks again to our panelists. Have a great evening.